recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I understand our friend from New Jersey apparently doesn't like Metro or the clientele it serves. So much of what he said, I think, distorts. I will in a bit. So much of what he said is in fact distorted. The Metro system in metropolitan Washington is one of the great success stories of regional cooperation in the United States of America. In less than 40 years, this system has created the second highest transit utilization in the United States. New York is well over 120 years old. We're less than 40. In addition, my friend talked about taxpayer money. Not a dime of federal money sustains or subsidizes Metro's operating costs. That's a problem because 40% of the federal workforce uses Metro every day. And it is subsidized not by the federal government, I said to my friend from New Jersey, but by local governments in the metropolitan area. I know because I was chairman of one of them. And I had to write that check every year for the subsidy for Metro. Not the federal government, the government. And we were happy to write the check because we saw the value in Metro. Metro also has the highest fare box recovery rate in the United States of any transit system. Subsidies, we recover 80% through the fare box. It's the most efficient recovery in the United States. It lacks a dedicated source of revenue. It's the only major transit system in the United States that lacks a dedicated source of revenue. That's why I say to my friend from New Jersey, my Republican predecessor introduced this legislation you want to cut. Tom Davis was the chairman of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee. He was a Republican congressman from Virginia, from the 11th District of Virginia I now am privileged to represent. And he and I saw eye to eye on this subject. We needed federal help, and the federal government had a special responsibility because this is the nation's capital. 12 million visitors use that Metro system at some point or another during the course of a year, unsubsidized by the federal government. In fact, the only subsidy we ever get is every 4 years when there's an inauguration, there's some consideration made. Other than that, we're kind of on our own. And so Tom Davis, my Republican predecessor, felt, as did all of us in the region, that there was a special obligation to at least help on capital improvements because it's an aging system. And with that aging system, elevators need to be replaced, escalators need to be improved, canopies need to be replaced. And so we came up with a capital improvement idea. And the deal was this, in a Republican Congress, that if the local governments would come up with a match, dollar for dollar, we, the federal government, would provide $150 million a year for that capital improvement, to get new cars that are safer, so we can avoid the kind of tragedy that occurred a few years ago in the system, because we have original cars still in the system from almost 40 years ago. And so the local governments came up with that match, $150 million, 50 for Maryland, 50 for D.C., 50 for Virginia. And we amended the compact, the contract that created Metro, to put federal representatives on the board for the first time with voting privileges. If we adopt this amendment today, we turn our back on that Republican idea, that Republican legislation, and we turn our back on the faith that the local jurisdictions have expressed in keeping their commitment as part of this bargain. Metro is a very important part of our nation's capital, and it is wrong to disinvest in it, and it's even wronger to break a contract, a commitment we made several years ago when my Republican predecessor introduced this legislation. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields.